Hey, this is Hunter Henry of the LA Chargers, and you're listening to the Full 10 Yards podcast.
Hey, we're rolling. We drive all game long. Stay cool, man. We got something special for y'all today.
You're listening to the Full 10 Yards podcast.
To the 10, right to the 5, scooting in for the score. Touchdown.
Yeah!
Yes, welcome in, everyone. 3 long weeks since the Super Bowl. It is good to be back. Had a little recharge of the batteries, and we are full steam ahead for the 2021 NFL season. They say there's no such thing as the off-season. There's already plenty for us to talk about. Things might look and feel and sound a little bit different around here heading into 2021. We've promised a bit of a shake-up. Get the first preview of that tonight with a bit of a new format to the podcast and some new cast members for me to introduce very shortly. Before I do that, though, it would be wrong of me not to just say a big thank you to all the contributions of our good friend Lawrence Voss, who you can now find at NFL Fan in England on Twitter. Lawrence, thanks for everything over the last couple of years, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure and a football education for me, indeed. But like I say, if you want to carry on following Lawrence's work, that's where you'll find him moving forward. However, as Lawrence departs, it opens up some opportunities for a couple of new people in the huddle, and I'm delighted to be joined by these two wonderful fellas on the screen for those of you watching along on the social channels. Welcome in, Steve and Ben. Steve, evening, mate. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, mate. Good to be on again. I had one guest appearance last year in the middle of the season. So yeah, it's good to be back and good to be talking football again after a few weeks off.
Absolutely, mate. You obviously must have done all right, mate, to come back for a second go. That guest appearance obviously didn't fall flat on its face. I think your beanie hat gives it away, mate, but just for those that don't know yet, a little bit about you, who you support, that kind of stuff, mate.
I'm our resident Birds fan. I'm sure I'll get some abuse from Tim for that. But yeah, I started watching the NFL in 2005 after the Patriots-Eagles Super Bowl, and I've just been following the Eagles ever since. Started with you guys last season, so excited to get started on the podcasting.
Yeah, looking forward to it, mate. Looking forward to it indeed. And at the bottom of the screen, a man that's been covering the NFL in his own right, but now part of the Full 10 Yards family. Welcome, Ben. Ben, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, as you say, most people may know me as UK Pigskin. So the UK Pigskin's been poached and is now part of the Full 10 Yards family. But yeah, I'm delighted to be here. So thank you for inviting me to be part of this new trio.
No, absolutely, mate. Pleasure is all ours indeed. And similar to a question I asked Steve, mate, just for those that don't know who you are and who you follow and all of that kind of good stuff, mate, who can people expect you to be cheering for on a Sunday evening?
As the name suggests, I'm a Rams fan. No connection to LA, but my second name is Ramsdale. As you'll see along the screen. So Ramsdale, Rams, that's why I've gone for the Rams. And been following them since about 2017, so not that long. But yeah, so basically, as soon as the Rams turned half decent, I started following them. But nothing to do with that, of course.
No, of course, mate. Of course. As you can see, ladies and gents, I'm still the only person in this team that didn't jump on the bandwagon and support a decent team at the start of my NFL fanhood. But we'll get onto that, I'm sure, plenty throughout the course of the season. As you can see, like I say, things will be a little bit different. Obviously, the off-season's a little bit different anyway, but you will see on the screen, and those of you listening along, we have got 10 topics to cover in today's podcast. They are going to include JJ Watt, plenty of quarterback movement, some free agency stuff. We're obviously getting towards the draft, so we'll turn our eyes back 12 months. Also ties in with a couple of articles that our fabulous writers are putting together that will be hitting the website over the coming week or so. And then just a couple of little bits about some of our favourite TV coverage and a few drunken tales from the newbies emulating Tom Brady on his Super Bowl barge. But let's get going, fellas. And obviously the big news broke yesterday. The man himself broke it, didn't he, in terms of JJ Watt revealing on Twitter that he was indeed going to sign with the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, Josh Edwards already put a written article up on the website. Check that out as ever at full10yards.com. But Steve, I'm going to pose you the question, my friend. It seemed a bit of a strange move. Is it a good move, or is this just a money move for JJ Watt?
Yeah, it was a bit of an odd one. I don't think anyone was really expecting the Cardinals. I think that was a bit of a out of the blue move that no one was really anticipating, especially considering that Cardinals pass rush is already so good. He joins the likes of Chandler Jones and Hassan Reddick, and they also bring pressure from not just the defensive line, but also from all across the field. They like to mix it up, and adding him to that line obviously makes it even better. I'm not convinced. I'm not so convinced at JJ Watt anymore. Like, obviously, he's still a good player, but is he still that elite status? I'm not so sure. The contract is huge, $31 million with $23 million guaranteed over 2 years. I think it's really interesting that they've only done it over 2 years rather than any longer than that. It shows that how long they think he's got left. His shelf life's off, obviously not very much anymore. And it's really interesting to look at his stats over the last few seasons. Interestingly, in his first 5 years in the NFL, after his rookie year there, because 4 years he went to the Pro Bowl in every year. But then following that, in the next 5 years in the NFL, he's only ever played all 16 games twice. So is there, and including last season in age 31, so is there an injury problem coming in? I'm not so sure. That's certainly a question that needs to be asked. It's a lot of money to pay someone that's only played the full slate of games twice in the last 5 years. So I'd be concerned about that if he goes down for the season, and then that's 1 year of only two you've got him for. So it's interesting, but it's probably good to note that this class of pass rushers that are coming up in the 2021 draft, there's no what you would call blue chip pass rush prospects. There's a couple of good players, but are they the elite style of the likes of last year's draft and certainly like Chase Young and players like that? Probably not. So it's interesting that the Cardinals have dipped into free agency whilst Kyler Murray still on his rookie contract. They've got a bit of money extra. They've got that money that they can allocate to someone like JJ Watt. So it's interesting to see that they've brought him in. I didn't think he'd end up there, but I'm really intrigued as to what the NFC West is going to look like now with that defense. Are they actually going to be realistically able to challenge for the NFC West next year? It's an interesting question because the next topic of conversation is going to be on another NFC West team. So I think that probably is a good time to then go into the next topic, which is for you, Ben. And I guess staying in the NFC West with your team, is Matt Stafford the right man to lead the Rams, or is it too late?
I'll just say before I'm sick of the NFC West. Every time you just think it's getting a little bit easier, it's someone else like Jay. But in terms of Matt Stafford, 100%. I'm all about Matt Stafford. I think he's going to make a huge difference to the Rams. I know there's a lot. I think there's a consensus with Matt Stafford. It's very 50-50. There's a lot of people that think, oh, he's no better than Goff, which absolute nonsense, by the way. He's a million times better than Jared Goff. But yeah, the Rams last season, they were so the defense. It was number one defense in the NFL. The defense won so many games last year, and then you look at the games that they lost, and a lot of that was due to turnovers. And who was the man behind the ball, and who was the man giving away those turnovers? It was Jared Goff. Will Matt Stafford turn the ball over as much as Jared Goff? Absolutely not. Is that fact? No, it's not fact. Nobody knows that until the season gets underway. But I bet a lot of money that the Rams will be a much, much better offense with Matt Stafford. I just think you could tell he got to like a halfway point of the season. Sean McVay's confidence in Goff had gone. He wasn't really defending him as much in press conferences and things like that. And when your head coach loses faith in you, then it's very, very unlikely that you're going to get it back. You've seen that with the Eagles and Carson Wentz. So it's one of those. I don't hate Goff at all. I got us to a Super Bowl at the end of the day. I think he's a decent quarterback, but I also think it's a tough one for him to go to the Lions. The Lions could be looking at the number one pick next year. I mean, it's a tough one. And with that, let me flip that over back to you, Steve. Should I flip it back to Sean, actually? Jared Goff. Will he be in the Lions? He's contracted till 2022. Will he be in the Lions come 2022? What do you reckon?
Well, if your prediction that they're going to get the number one pick comes to fruition, I think it's fairly safe to say that he won't be on the Rams, my friend. I don't think he'll be anywhere near as bad as that. I think it's easy to forget how good Jared Goff was just a couple of short years ago. He went toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes in a famous Monday night matchup. When he finished, what was it, 60-odd points to 55 or whatever it was, ridiculous. I think Goff needs a good run game around him. That's obviously always been questionable in Detroit, seemingly forever. They obviously got some good games out of DeAndre Swift towards the back end of last year. So whether that can continue. There's obviously questions in terms of the likes of Kenny Golladay, who's someone we're going to come on to later. Is he going to be back? He's obviously a massive weapon on the outside. But the Lions feel very much in rebuild. Obviously, a new head coach. They've obviously acquired a number of picks with the Matt Stafford trade. So you would suggest that the trajectory for the Lions is actually looking at building something over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. Will they keep Goff for that long? I think Goff, like I say, has got a real chance to bounce back. His contract's horrible, and let's face it, that's partly the reason that I think the Rams were actually glad to sort of get him moved on. It was a horrible contract that he was given, and ultimately he was paid an awful lot of money to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league and didn't necessarily perform anywhere near that level, and obviously has ultimately paid the price by being moved on. I think he's competent enough. I think he struggles under pressure. So he's going to obviously need a good line around him. And like I say, that run game for me is what's needed to really take the pressure off even further. But I think there's certainly worse options than Jared Goff. He's still only young. If it does work out, then potentially the Lions have got the quarterback to take them through this rebuild. However, like I say, they have obviously got a lot of holes on the roster. It's a lot of money tied up in a quarterback that isn't necessarily certainly setting the world alight. I don't think there was many Lions fans jumping up and down when the trade went down, although they did get some decent value in return for Stafford. So I think it will be interesting. But I think Goff's, like you say, fairly decent. I mentioned one of the big names there in Detroit, and that's, of course, Kenny Golladay. Steve, I'm going to ask you a bit of a tough question here. I'm going to give you 3 wide receivers as we're approaching free agency. Gets underway in 2 weeks' time. I'm going to only give you the option that you can tag one, sign one, and you have to release one. So you can't just say you're going to tag all 3 of them if that's what you were hoping to get away with. But the 3 options I'm going to give you are Allen Robinson, Kenny Golladay, and Chris Godwin. What's your thoughts on those 3, my friend?
That's a tough one. I think there's been so much talk around Allen Robinson over the last sort of his entire career, really. His entire career has been fraught with. He's had 2 of the worst quarterbacks, in Mitch Trubisky with the Bears, and then previous to that with Blake Bortles. So it's really tough to say is he an elite receiver and who's just been performing out of his skin with these awful quarterbacks, or has he found his level and actually would he get shown up on a team where there's a quality player in front of him? It's really difficult to say. And then in terms of Kenny Golladay and Chris Godwin, it's tough to separate them apart. It really is. It's really tough to separate them. I think that Robinson wants out. I don't think he'll stand for another year in Chicago. And I think that Chicago probably know that. But are they willing to just release him? I don't think he'd sign a new contract. So I don't think it's interesting to. I think they'd have to release him. I don't think they'll. They'll have any other choice. And then in terms of Kenny Golladay, will the Lions want to put more money into that position? Will they want to give Goff new weapons? Will they look to take a receiver in the upcoming draft? There's some real top receivers coming up. So again, could that be a case of they look to release him? I don't know. And then in terms of Chris Godwin. Can the tag be? Would the tag be used on him? I don't know. The tag is not something that's used very often, especially for wide receivers. So I can't see it. I mean, is it possible to say release on all 3? Because I think that might be where it heads. I really do. I don't think the tag is realistically something that's going to happen in terms of any of those 3. But what I'll do is I'm gonna throw that over to Ben and ask him a similar question. In terms of defensive players now. So with the same principle, with a tag /sign/release between Shaq Barrett, Von Miller, and Bud Dupree.
Has Von Miller already gone? Von Miller's been released, hasn't he? Or have I just made that up?
I think he's injured, as far as I'm aware. He got he suffered. Was it an Achilles tear? I think mid-season, but I don't think he's been released yet, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of talk about him being one of the ones that were released. But if you aren't, I don't know. It's such in similar boat. It's such a tough one. Like, where do you go with that? I think Shaq Barrett, you've got to sign him. I don't think he was a standout on the Bucs defense, but he's a big part of obviously the defense that just won a Super Bowl. You've got to sign Shaq Barrett. Like, at the end of the day, Von Miller. Again, it depends. If does he want another ring? He's not going to get it with the Broncos. Let's be serious. So the Broncos cut the losses and rebuild. Probably, I don't. It's a tough one. It's a very tough one. I probably because I think the Broncos want to start again quarterback wise. Basically, like a lot of teams, like you just said in the previous question, a lot of teams want to start again. Broncos are one of them. So if you want to start again and cut your losses, release Miller. Start again, rebuild from the very bottom upwards. Bud Dupree, I don't know. I'm not very indifferent on Bud Dupree. Anyway, just release the guy. Yeah, that's just my personal opinion. I'll have people shouting at me for that, but I'm not a big Bud Dupree fan personally, so just release the guy. But let me just stick on the quarterback merry-go round, if you will, because we spoke there about teams rebuilding, the Broncos rebuilding. I think when you mentioned Steve Allen Robinson out, I think a lot of that would depend. Say, for example, what if the Bears get Deshaun Watson? I'm not saying they will. I don't think they will. But what if the Bears got Deshaun Watson? Does Allen Robinson then want to leave? Probably not. So, Sean, let's go to you. There's obviously going to be a lot more quarterback merry-go-rounding, if you will, before the season begins. What's the next time to fall in that aspect, you reckon?
Oh, what a tough question, mate. I mean, have you ever known an off season like it? It just seems as though everybody is available for the right price, doesn't it? I mean, who would have thought we'd even be considering the likes of Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson moving teams? You just thought these were guys that were going to be at the relative clubs for the duration of the careers. But yeah, whether these things will actually materialise, we'll wait and see. I mean, obviously the Texans seemingly playing hardball with Deshaun Watson. You could argue rightfully so. I'm all for a bit of player power. Don't get me wrong, but I think that there's enough that the Texans have done over the last few years that's been more than questionable. I think getting rid of the star quarterback would be the last nail in the coffin for a number of fans. So absolutely they should be playing hardball with him. Russell Wilson, I think will he go? I mean, I really like the pitch from the mayor of New Orleans, trying to actually get him across. I don't think Drew Brees took kindly to that, and Drew Brees obviously released a workout video, so maybe Drew Brees is coming back. There's obviously Dak Prescott. Do the Cowboys want to re-sign him? You'd have thought that would have been done and dusted. Obviously, how does the injury that he suffered last year impact on the decision that the Cowboys make? You can't see them letting him hit free agency. But the tag's going to be, 37 million for a quarterback on the tag. I mean, if I was Dak, I would back myself and probably play on the tag. The way he started off last year, I mean, he was on for incredible numbers, wasn't he? So if I was Dak, I'd certainly be looking to do that. Chicago's a strange one. They've got that much money tied up already in Trubisky and in Foles. To sort of add another one to the mix just seems bizarre. Do Miami move on from Tua? There are so many possibilities, but I can't give you a good answer. And I think that's great. I don't want to give you a good answer. I think that's part of the intrigue of this off-season. Who knows who actually could end up playing anywhere? So a really interesting debate yesterday on PFT, on Sky Sports, and they were actually saying, with confidence, which quarterbacks currently on rosters today will be the starters for their team in 4 years' time? And the list was minimal, absolutely minimal, that the guys came up with. So, for me, really intriguing. I think it adds to the excitement to the off-season. Big thank you to you two boys for bailing me out there, because those that are aware, I completely went out of order there. So well done, fellas. You've passed your test on your first podcast, bailed me out completely. Let's get back in the order that we were scheduled to be going in, and let's cast our mind back to the NFL draft of 12 months ago. And let's talk about some of the diamonds that came out of that draft. Obviously, mock drafts will be aplenty all over the internet and social media in the coming weeks, and you'll get to know about all the first round or potential first round selections. But often, Steve, it's the guys picked later on, diamonds in the rough. Talk us through a couple of your favourite players from last year that outperformed expectations.
Yeah, that was a bit of a shock there when you asked me that question, and I wasn't expecting it. But keep us on our toes. I like it. Yeah, I think it's always difficult to pick sort of diamonds and after one season because I think with rookies, especially later rookies as well, a lot of them are not picked to play immediately, and their roles can be quite limited. But there's definitely a few that stand out. I think honourable mentions to guys that were perhaps picked a bit too early to be considered a diamond in the rough from later rounds, like guys like Jeremy Chin. Like he's been an absolute star for Carolina. I would say Jonathan Taylor as well, but probably again a bit too high. I would certainly want to give a mention to Michael Onwenu, who the Patriots picked. He was a 6th-round pick. He played 80 snaps at each left guard, right guard, and right tackle, and he played well at each position. Had a grade of 79 at each 3 positions. That's really impressive to be able to shift along the line. And usually guys, especially between tackle and guard, usually guys that you get aligned to one single position, and that's the position you play. And it's really difficult to shift, especially in the NFL. And for a 6th-round guy to be that good, I think that's really impressive. But I think my standout guy, again, another honourable mention to Chase Claypool, again an early round pick, but considering how many wide receivers went before him, I think he did quite well for the Steelers. He certainly had a big game against Philadelphia and put up some huge numbers through the season. And considering the number of wide receivers that went before him, I think he was about the 8th or 9th wide receiver taken. So, but my main one that I want to talk about was actually an undrafted rookie. Jaguars running back James Robinson. I mean, he was second amongst rookies with 1,400 scrimmage yards. He's only the 4th undrafted rookie with at least 1,000 rushing yards. He had 10 touchdowns, seven rushing and 3 receiving. And in a Jacksonville team that lost 15 games. Like, that's such an incredible record to have. And I think he has to be top of the tree when it comes to looking at draft players that stood out. And I mean, he wasn't even drafted. He was undrafted rookie. So to be able to put up those numbers, I think running backs is quite a common area for a lot of running backs go undrafted and then teams pick them up and they can end up being really, really good. That's why I thoroughly believe that you should never pay running backs because they're a dime a dozen, and some of them you can pick up, as an undrafted free agent, and then they can go on and have seasons like he just did. So yeah, for sure. I think we'll flip it round and continuing on with the order this time, we'll flip it over to Ben and sort of flip the question on its head. So I guess what were some rookies that and I guess it might be difficult to answer this, but what rookies do you think were so much expected of them and just didn't perform? Who flopped, so to speak, in their rookie season?
That's it, Steve. Give me the tough one. The obvious one that a lot of people have been talking about is Tua. I don't agree with that at all. I think, he had a tough first season, but the guy was coming off a near career-ending injury. He didn't have a preseason because of COVID. I think the Tua criticism is extremely, extremely harsh. So I'm not getting into that one. I think we'll see the best of Tua next year, and I hope we do anyway. In terms of rookies that I think just didn't perform, not that they didn't perform, but I think for a top round pick and for someone that was very highly touted, I think Isaiah Simmons didn't live up to the hype at all. I don't know why he just didn't seem to get that many snaps throughout the year. I don't know. Again, I don't know whether that's just protecting him being a rookie, but for someone that was touted to be that much of a star, he didn't really do that much. I might be wrong. I've not got the stats in front of me, but I believe he only got 1 pick, maybe 2, which for someone coming out of with what I can't even remember what pick he was. Like, he was a top 10 pick at the end of the day, and he was touted to go higher than he did. So he was meant to be a steal for the Cardinals at that round. So you expect him to do a lot more. And you obviously mentioned Claypool there, and a lot of wide receivers been before him. A wide receiver that I just think didn't live up to the hype for whatever reason was Henry Ruggs. I mean, can you name one thing that Henry Ruggs did in 2020? like seriously one good thing that Henry Ruggs did. You expected him to be this explosive thing on the Raiders offense, but no, he just wasn't that. The Raiders offense just looked, well, they were so reliant on Darren Waller again, and they look like they need to dip back into the wide receiver market again. He might be a completely different player next year, Henry Ruggs, but for a top 20 pick in Henry Ruggs, he just didn't. Well, his stats just weren't there at all. So we'll move on anyway. So I don't want to slag off rookies. They'll all come good. Like you said, you don't want to. It's hard to pick the ones that are down the up there. It's hard to say that they all flop. That's why I don't like the criticism of Tua, to be honest, because it's just a tough one. The rookies that a lot of them can take a lot longer to develop. But moving on to a completely different topic, which I didn't know until we were doing the research for this pod, that Thursday Night Football is going to Amazon Prime. I don't know if you two knew that before doing the research for this pod, but Thursday Night Football is going to Amazon Prime. So, Steve, let's go to you. And what's your favourite NFL coverage team? I know that's a very broad question. There's so many good names that you could choose from them. But what are your favourite NFL coverage teams that you could listen to at the moment?
I tell you what. I always look forward to, if this is sort of what you're asking, I always look forward to listening to Joe Buck. I think Joe Buck's the best announcer in the NFL, and I won't hear another word about it. I think he's fantastic. He does baseball as well, so I think I really like Joe Buck. I'm a big fan of his. I know a lot of people really liked Tony Romo when he came in to join the broadcasting booth, and I understand. I get it. Like, I get that he's a new insight. He's a quarterback. He's recently played, and he obviously can tell a lot of plays before they happen. But I've just got a bit bored of him. Like, he doesn't really offer too much anymore. And he's okay, but that's about it. That's about it. What about you, Sean? This is the last question. What do you think? Who's yours? Do you like Joe Buck?
I don't mind Joe Buck, mate, but everybody that listens to this podcast knows, in my opinion, the goat of the commentary booth, my friend, is Mr. Kevin Harlan. I am still gobsmacked he's not the lead man at CBS. Kevin Harlan is just fantastic. He's absolutely brilliant. He's comedy gold, and he's another guy, multi-sports, does a fantastic job. I just think in terms of TNF going to Amazon Prime, I think it's an interesting one to see how this develops. None of the major networks apparently showing too much interest in Thursday Night Football, which probably doesn't signal good news for its longevity. I know a lot of people probably be quite glad of that. I know a lot of people have said that having a double header every Monday night would be better in terms of obviously having to deal with the pandemic this year, and obviously that happening organically, if you like, a few times throughout the season. I think people tended to like that sort of format. So it'll be interesting to see. It's obviously a massive opportunity for Amazon. Probably won't affect things too much, obviously, in the UK with Sky's TV deal, I believe, covering 5 years. So we're not going to see any difference. It'll just obviously be a different feed. But it'll be interesting to see what commentators they get, because obviously they've been using your friend Mr. Buck and Troy Aikman on Thursday nights for the last couple of years. Before that, they obviously used Nance, and I don't know if Romo was in then or whether it was Nance and Sims back in the day. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if Amazon bring anybody in. Potentially an opportunity for Nate Burleson, although he did brilliantly on the Nickelodeon broadcast, and I know Nate's a name to look out for in the broadcasting arena. Right, fellas, enough talk of football. I want to talk a little bit personal to you two, fellas. Let's get our listeners and viewers the chance to get to know you a little bit. We all saw Tom Brady's antics on his boats. He's probably still got a headache after all the tequila that he drank on that evening. I want to know, fellas, tell me a little story about when you could have gone toe-to-toe with the GOAT in a drinking contest and where you ultimately ended up falling over or doing whatever it was ridiculous that you did. Steve, let's start with you, buddy.
So I had two to choose from, but I've gone with this one because I'm not proud of it. So not last year, because obviously it was COVID, so we didn't have a Christmas party last year. But the Christmas party the year before at my office, we had a big Christmas party at the local football stadium. I live in Essex, so it was a football stadium like event centre type thing. And the party went till about 12:30, and obviously, it's a free bar, so everyone drinks as much as they can. I think I had 2 drinks at all times because it's a free bar. Why wouldn't you? And my flatmate came and picked me up at about 12:30 once he kicked out, and he got McDonald's on the way, and he bought me a McDonald's, and he threw it at me in the he has a van, and he threw it at me in the van, and I didn't know he gave it to me. And apparently I was really sad for the whole drive back to our flat because I didn't know he got me McDonald's until I got out of the van and it dropped down. I was like, "Oh, you did get me it." So then I went back upstairs to my room. Very quickly, the room started spinning. I threw up so hard that the next morning I had bloodshot my entire eye and burst all the blood vessels in my eye. And the next day at work, we had our monthly town hall. So I had to sit in a meeting of the entire company whilst my CEO talked about how the company was doing. And he made everyone in the company at the count of three shout who they thought got the drunkest last night. And a lot of people turned around and looked at me with my giant bloodshot eye, and I was not proud of that. I ended up having to go home about 1 o'clock because my hangover was so bad.
I tell you,
Let's not say that.
Never understood why they have Christmas parties in the middle of the week. That's certainly a Friday or Saturday do if you ask me moving forward, mate.
It was a Wednesday night, and I think from now on, I think all of the managers in the company got together and said we are never having a Christmas party on a weeknight ever again because there was too much lost productivity the Thursday afterwards.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Ben, how about you, buddy?
I don't know. We've got to try and keep it PG, haven't we? There's a few. I sound like an alcoholic. There's so many. There's one that particularly stands out to me. A previous girlfriend of mine. I used to be. You wouldn't believe it. I used to be quite quiet. I used to be like relatively quiet, especially when it's like with a girlfriend time. If you want to be the nice, classy guy, but they decided they wanted to like get me drunk, and this was a few years back, and obviously I wanted to prove that I wasn't this quiet kid. I had about me and all this. And we were playing shot roulette, which I'm sure you've both played before. And they were deliberate. Everything was deliberately. They was fixing it, so everything went on me. Like the worst shots went to me. But I had to do it, and I was like, oh, basically, yeah, look at me drinking all these shots, and I am cool and all this and whatnot. I got to a stage where I just physically couldn't stand up, and this is different from like my girlfriend's family. I'm trying to like look. I'm a good match for your daughter here, your loving daughter, and then her brother, who was obviously her brother was taking it on, so obviously her brother wanted to embarrass me, but her brother was like, let's do the full Monty. So this was a barbecue at my I think it was 19, 20 barbecue at my girlfriend's parents' house. And her brother's like, let's do the full Monty. You whack the music on, and there I am stripping off in front of my girlfriend's parents. Got down to my boxes, and then just threw up everywhere. And then I don't remember anything after that. I remember stripping down to my boxes, which luckily I'm glad it didn't go any further than that. I don't think it went any further than that. I went down to my boxes, threw up basically as soon as I got down to my boxes, then woke up the next day in bed. And then was throwing up the following morning, plentiful. So our relationship didn't last much longer after that. I don't think that was the key. But yeah, there was a few, but I'll pick that one for the listeners.
Jolly good, mate. At least you didn't throw your sausage on the barbecue, mate. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. That is all I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Right, ladies and gents, like I say, sounded and looked a little bit different. If you've been listening along, watching along, really appreciate your company. As always, you can follow us across all social media channels, and I mean all social media channels. We have now even gone into the world of TikTok. There's not a lot on the channel yet, but again, you prepared for the big relaunch of the brand. We keep teasing it, and like I said, we've got big plans for the year ahead, so you can see there, Full 10 Yards, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and of course the website, full10yards.com. As always, when you go on there, you will see some information about some discount codes that you are able to get from us. So if you want to get any merchandise, you can do so at NFL Europe Shop. And if you want to get some stuff direct from the States, we highly recommend the lads over at 5 Star Imports. Hit them up on Facebook and Twitter also. Really great service from the lads, I've got to say. Really impressive, and obviously a big selection of stuff direct from the States. But like I say, if you want it a little bit close to home, get a discount with us at the NFL Europe Shop. Please make sure you take advantage of that. Fellas, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really enjoyed that. Like I say, I'd be interested to see how people respond to it. Please get in touch with us, interact with us on all of those social channels. We may well even have some behind-the-scenes footage and some counter-arguments. I'm pretty sure that we didn't agree with each other on all the points that we made there, chaps. So, like I say, check it out on the socials, and we will be back, hopefully, same time next week, if you will all have us and have the pleasure of us in your ears for another week. Until that time, though, ladies and gents, it's been an absolute pleasure. Remember, everything we do at Full 10 Yards is for the game in this country. Massive supporters of the Britball game. Anything that you do with us, it all helps the game in this country. So I really appreciate all of your interaction and involvement. And fellas, we're even closing the pod off differently these times. We used to sign off in the great words of Kevin Cadle. And Kev, we still love you, my friend, but we are very much all about Britball. So fellas, we will sign off with our new motto, which is all for the game. We'll say the words Britball after 3. So 3, 2, 1. Britball.
Britball.
Thanks for listening to the Full 10 Yards podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Full 10 Yards, or email the show full10yards@gmail.com.